And again, my friend, that she doesn't have a good retirement. She's been self-employed for
Yes, you were saying. So now that she's hurt.
And I think that she needs something that she can have an income. Right now she gets an income from me and she does a lot of work. But the bottom line is she's not going to be able to do that forever. And she broke her wrist and all of a sudden, now then for 3 weeks, she's very limited on what she does. So she's hired someone to take care of those clients that she absolutely does not want to lose.
Right.
But finding help today, I have had 2 people from the home care, and 2 people got fired. It was to clean the house and do stuff. There's a program in there. But the bottom line is, she didn't clean well. She didn't do the stuff. Michelle specifically told her, do not do the laundry. And yet she went out and had dark clothes, light clothes, rags that was used for cleaning, and the mop head that was used for mopping the floor, all in one load. And that was kind of the straw. Or the mirrors. You go ahead and look at the mirrors, and you look at them from the side, you see streaks in them. And Michelle, being a professional, that drives her nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same way like a floor. The dog footprints, if they get wet, dogs have footprints there, and they're hard to get out. And Michelle will go over them 3 or 4 times until they're gone. Well, they were still here after she mopped, and you could not really tell that she had mopped in here. So
Wasn't trying real hard.
it was, and the first lady, she came in. I have a vacuum for the rugs, and then I have a built-in vacuum we use on the floors. And first thing she did to vacuum the rug, she said, "How do you turn this thing on?" Now, someone that has 13 years experience has had just about every vacuum in it on the market. And so that gave me the first indication. And there was other things. Then the second one, she'd been working in facilities. And this was her first residential. And I guess she cleaned this like she did in facilities.
You would think that she would have tried even harder.
Well, you know, the home care outfit needs to have some type of a training program. And that's where I'm thinking Michelle would do good.
To help train.
Something like that as a nonprofit, so she can actually pay herself a salary, pay other people, and she can offer her services to train these, to go out 2 or 3 times the first time they go out, because you got a 19, 20-year-old that's never worked before.
Right.
And mom never taught them to clean the house. So I don't know.
I don't even know if she'd have to do it as a nonprofit or just like consulting.
Yeah.
She could set it up. But it might be good, like the training. It would definitely.
If it's a nonprofit, a whole bunch of it can be eliminated from taxes.
Right. So that does help in that sense.
So as soon as I fired the second gal, they asked if they could hire Michelle and she could be my caretaker. I don't know whether she's going to or not. That's, like I told her, that's up to her. But I pay her to clean the house, but there's so many other things she does, like my shopping, stuff like that. But she does that out of the goodness of her heart. And so it's just, she may as well get compensated for it.
Absolutely.
Especially with her broken arms, she can't work all the time, and then make up for her lost wages.
Well, and the VA, I'm assuming, pays for your caregiver. So, I mean, you worked really hard to earn those benefits. Somebody should be getting paid to take care of you, and it should be somebody doing a good job.
So, anyway, we'll see what she decides.
Well, if she ever decides to do a nonprofit, just let me know. I mean, I would definitely talk. I'm not an expert by any means, but I did
Yeah,
do
but
it.
you did it.
I did do it. Yep.
So,
Well, so the first question is, who are you?
is that going?
It is. So we'll have to cut all of
It's been
it.
going all the time.
Yes, I started years ago. I started this 7 years ago, and I would start these videos, and I'd just be talking to people while I was setting stuff up, and they would say the funniest things, and I never recorded them. So now it's like I would rather have stuff that we cut out than miss it. Like I had this one very prim and proper woman, and she said that she tried every day to be a good girl, but she knew all the cuss words and she was really good at saying them. And I'm like, oh, I wish I had that. So that's always been my thing now. I start the recording when we sit down and I can cut it out if there's nothing good there.
Okay, you asked me who
are
Who
you?
are you? And my name is Chuck Riley. I'm a retired naval officer that spent 24 years in submarine service and loved every minute of it as far as I recall. Those bad times go away, the good times stay with you. Had a wonderful time. I was married to the same lady for 62 years. In fact, tomorrow would have been our 65th wedding anniversary. And of course, it has sentimental value to me. Other than that, I had 3 children. My oldest daughter passed away. I have 2 wonderful children alive. One is working up in Libby, Montana. The other one works here in Haight. And I do get to see him somewhat, not as frequently as I'd like to, but somewhat.
So Chuck, but that's your nickname, right? You're Charles.
Yeah.
Am I correct? I thought so. Do you know where your parents got that name from?
Charles came from one of my grandfathers and a great-grandfather. My middle name, William, came from both of my grandparents.
I don't think I told you this. So my son's name is Hagen. His middle name is Charles William.
Oh,
And they were family names, so that's why it made me think, oh, I bet those were family names. So do you have siblings?
I had 2 sisters, 1 brother. A brother and a sister have passed away. I have 1 sister that's living. She's down in Sacramento, California, in the heat and the political situation.
Yeah, it's a mess. Where did you grow up?
That's hard to say. I was born in Arkansas. During the war, my folks moved to Richmond, California, and worked in the shipyard there. My dad was a shipwright, my mom was a riveter. After the war, they went back to Arkansas. We lived there for a few years. Then we moved back to California in the Bay Area, Livermore. We lived there for a few years. Then we moved up to Lake Tahoe, California. I went, I guess, the 7th, 8th in high school at Tahoe. I graduated from high school in Tahoe in 1958.
So what town in Arkansas were you born in?
Hamburg.
Hamburg? A little one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I don't recognize
still
the name.
pretty small. In fact, we still have the family farm that's been in the family for, I guess, 150 years. And every 2 years, they have a reunion there. I haven't been to very many of them, but back in 2007 or 2008, I was at it, and there was about 250 people there. And you should see they have an 11-acre pond. They catch a lot of crappie, and at Saturday night they always have a fish fry, and it's stuff that came out of the pond as much as possible. But they have to supplement it some with with that number of people.
Right.
And it's not because the fish aren't there, it's because the fishermen aren't busy doing it, they're visiting.
But yeah, it's getting to know the family that they haven't seen forever. What were your parents' names?
My dad's name was Floyd, my mom's name was Oberlin.
What was that?
Oberlin,
Oberlin.
yeah, just like the college, Oberlin.
Yes, I don't think I've ever heard that for a first name.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, actually, it's not, she never went by her first name. Very few people knew it, but her first name is Annie's, her middle name is Oberlin,
Oh.
and she went by Oberlin. Why? I never know.
And then, did you have other family? So if these reunions were so big, did you have like people that were important, aunts or uncles?
On my father's side, my dad's side, I knew my grandmother. My grandfather passed away when I was about 8 years old. He had heart problems and passed away. And but my grandmother, she lived and she was about 96 years old. She lived right there in Hamburg the whole time. In fact, as a group of 8 inherited the old farm. And then when my dad passed away, his interest went to me and my brother and sisters. So I had an interest in the place. And she lived in the place rent-free, of course, until she was too old and had to go to an assisted care. And she lived in assisted care probably about 4 or 5 years, and then before she passed away. And
How did she make it to 100?
no,
Not quite.
no, neither one of my grandmoms made it. On my mom's side, my granddad passed away when I was probably 20 or 21. I was in the Navy at the time, but he had been ill. He was in the First World War, so, and he had been gassed and stuff, so he had runny eyes and he had various problems. And similar to Agent Orange, he had diabetes, and they had to amputate both of his feet, so he was bedridden. I didn't get to see him a lot because I was in the Navy moving around. So he passed away, but my grandmother continued living in the house that they rented it. And I guess they rented that place for 35 years. And the people that owned it raised a little rent a little bit, but never a lot.
Okay.
And she lived until she was in her 80s, and then she passed away. But yes, especially early on when I was my dad's grandmother, we used to go see them frequently. Then we moved to California and they stayed in Arkansas. But my mom's parents, they moved to California from Arkansas.
Okay.
And they lived in the same town. So I saw them frequently. I only lived about 2 miles from them. I used to either walk over, take my bike, and visit with them. And Grandma always had something good to eat in the fridge.
What was your favorite thing that she made?
Well, we call them hush puppies.
Okay.
It was just basically hot cornbread, hot water cornbread. And I used to watch her. She would pat them out by hand, and she'd have that cornmeal with such hot water. Her hands would be red. And back in those days, of course, they didn't have the rubber gloves she used. But she would just stand there at the stove with the oil in her pan and fry them, and then they would go to the table. And really, the family gatherings were always good because the food was plentiful, and the whole family, my granddad, my grandmom, my aunts, my uncles, would all be around the table or sitting somewhere eating, and it'd be fried chicken or what. and always had these hush puppies, and they were always one. In fact, I've tried to duplicate them. I haven't made the transition.
She didn't give you the recipe?
I've got a recipe for them. I don't know if it's hers. I wasn't smart enough to ask for it. But it's basically salt, pepper, cornmeal, and hot water.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah. And it's basically, she always cooked them in a black iron skillet with oil there that just barely covered over half. And she would fry them that way. Of course, you can put them in a deep fat fryer, the same thing.
Do you know what kind of oil she used? Because that could make a difference.
It was probably Crisco vegetable oil, because back in those days we didn't have all of the fancy stuff, and it may have been just plain Crisco that she melted.
That's why I wondered. Sorry, are we going in? There we go. But yeah, I just wondered, because sometimes with recipes, you know, the different oils and stuff will change it. But you're right. It was probably.
Yeah, and both my mom and my grandmother used a lot of the Crisco solid for cooking. But as the vegetable oil came in, they shifted that because it was just more convenient.
Mm-hmm.
But both of them were super cooks. My two aunts, they were good cooks, and we had a good close family relationship.
That's really nice. And I love that they moved to California, because that move from Arkansas, that's a long way. You could have never saw family again.
It was kind of funny because my mom and my brother took a car and trailer and went back there and moved them to California. I stayed with my dad, and at that time my first sister was born, and I took care of her during the daytime while my dad worked, and I tried to clean the house. You know, I'd mop the floors. There'd be streaks in it. And Dad would come home and say, "Not good, do it again." But we got along for the whole time, and it was probably about 2 or 3 weeks that they were gone. They did dump the trailer on the way back. Fortunately, no one was hurt, and they were able to recover everything. But that was a long trip. My dad was tired of my cooking and his cooking by the time they got back.
But what do you cook?
Right now, the main thing I do is I still do sourdough bread.
Do you?
I've taken some medicine, my hand skin I've shed, and so I've been careful not to cook during that time, but I'm ready to get back into it. My starter's ready. I've got everything ready, so I'm ready to start on it. And that's one thing. The other thing, you know, it varies. I really like to barbecue.
Yeah.
My favorite barbecue is tenderloin, which I've done many times. I've also done a large top sirloin, and I do them on the big green egg, so I get a good smoke flavor.
Yeah, that is yummy. Sorry, I was just seeing what that text was. What did you like to do when you were a kid? What were your favorite activities? Like a little kid before high school.
I was a Boy Scout. I loved to go camping. We didn't have a lot of money, so it wasn't very frequent. But in Livermore, we had a community swimming pool.
Oh, nice.
And I would walk up about a mile or so. And especially during that time, my mom and brother were back in Arkansas, I would be able to get away and go to the pool and spend the afternoon in the pool. My little sister, I forget where she was during that time, but I didn't leave her alone. But I don't know where she was. She may have been with my grandmother, whatever. But I used to love going to the pool and swimming. When I was about, I guess, 12 years old, I went through their life-saving course and became a junior lifesaver. Then later on, sports, I started getting in. I tried to play baseball, but it just wasn't my sport. But football was my sport. And then I had some real close friends that just lived down the street, and we used to go out, and especially when Mom was home, she could tell us when the street lights come on home. It was very safe back in those days. And then, of course, I had a friend that wanted me to get into competitive shooting.
Oh.
And he took me out with his 22 target rifle and was teaching me to shoot. He passed away, and he wanted me to have that target rifle, but his son wanted it more. And so being a 12-year-old or 10 or 12-year-old, his words were a lot stronger than mine. And of course I had no claim to it because he was just a very good friend. But and then of course I grew up and I started hunting more. We hunted, even when I was 13 years old, we were hunting deer.
Was that in Tahoe or in Livermore?
We hunted some in Tahoe, over by Clear Lake.
Okay.
The deer were just absolutely humongous. I mean, a lot of deer over in the Clear Lake area. In fact, a lot of places had them listed as a nuisance. But we'd go over there and hunt on the farm, on a ranch that one of our friends was managing. And we may stay a couple of days and hunt a lot of deer, a lot of venison.
That's cool. So, how old were you when you met your wife?
We met when we were juniors in high school.
I thought so. You were the same age?
She was, I was older than her. I was born in July. She was born in October.
Okay, but so very close.
Close enough, but still I was older.
And what was her name?
Jerry.
Jerry. And so where did you meet her?
High school at Lake Tahoe.
At Tahoe. Did you fall in love right away?
The day I had been going to Lake Tahoe. She and her family moved up from Salinas, and she was in the office, principal's office, with her mom. And I walked by, and I said, "Uh-oh." Turned around and walked by again. And that night I went and asked her for a date. And we dated about 3 or 4 times and decided, it was right for both of us. And so we stayed together all through high school. After high school, had a little bit of trouble. She went to San Francisco to dental tech school, and I was working at Safeway at Lake Tahoe. And I transferred to San Francisco to be near her. And here I am, 18, 19-year-old kid, moving to the big city, but moved there. And we kind of hit a few rough spots. She went back to Reno and went to work as a dental tech. And I was, of course, still in San Francisco. We were separated probably about 3 months, and I called her up and says, "Let's get married." She said yes. We made a trip to Tahoe where our folks live, and I did the traditional thing, talked to my soon-to-be father-in-law. Of course, he was very concerned about being able to take care of her. And I pointed out that at that time, I was making pretty good money at Safeway. And so finally they gave their blessing. We got married in Carson City in 1958, and had a little reception up in Tahoe. Went over to the Reno area for a short honeymoon, because we couldn't afford much. And then she moved back to San Francisco, and at the time she didn't have a job there. She just was a housewife. And then one day I joined the Navy.
So how'd you come to that idea?
I was a graduate of high school. I wanted to go to college, but I had a wife, and I figured that I just couldn't afford it, because the cost of living, what I made was enough we were comfortable, but not enough that I could do it. And I'm not sure that working at the store there and the number of hours that I put in there, I had enough time to have another job to pay for school. And one day I saw a small ad in one of the little local community papers about the Navy's program for what they call the Navy Enlisted Scientific Education Program. And it was also called from Seaman Admiral. And so I went down, talked to the recruiter, and got a completely erroneous picture. Because boy, I saw that I was going to shoot up and be an admiral. And I was going to do it in about 10 years. But, so I went home and I talked to Jerry, and she was for it because she was always pro-military. And so I went back the next day and enlisted. Went through 7.5 years enlisted, and then got my commission and started on my route to my path to admiral. 17.5 years later, I hadn't made it, but I still had a great life, a lot of fun, and at least I wasn't at the bottom of the barrel.
So what was your rank when you did retire?
I retired as a commander.
Nothing to
No.
shake your head at, so.
And you know, I had been selected for command, but my son at that time was 15, 16 years old. He bordered on being hyperactive. If we went someplace where there was a male influence when I was gone, Jerry could handle that. But if she went someplace where that male influence didn't exist, like an uncle, a cousin, whatever, that she had a hard time with him. And he was smart, smart as a whip, but he also was kind of lazy. That he would go in and he would be getting straight A's in school, and he'd get tired of it. And next thing you know, his grades were down C's and D's. And so when they offered me command, it was in New London, Connecticut, and there were two things that were against it. One is there was no male influence there for Jerry, and the second one was I thought about going out to sea on a submarine bridge with cold weather, and at the time I had a beard, and I could feel the ice in my beard, even though I was down in Charleston. I could feel the ice there, and I said, no, that's not for me. So I put in my papers and retired.
Good for you. So what did you do after you retired from the Navy?
Well, the first thing I did, I went to work for an engineering firm as a program manager. I got promoted to vice president and then senior vice president, and I had to come, basically my district was from just south of Washington, D.C. to Mississippi. I had various offices, and I would go back and forth. And I did that for 3 years, but I just wasn't comfortable being a contractor. There's two things that as active duty, you never feel comfortable going from active duty and being civil servant. or being a contractor. You're just not used to it.
Yeah.
So after about 3 years, I saw an article in the paper about the submarine up here. And so a friend of mine at that time was the commanding officer at the Naval Sea System Command, in David Taylor. I guess it was Baltimore. It was somewhere there in Maryland. And so I called him up and asked him if I was qualified for it. His answer, oh, you definitely are. He says, I can't hire you, but put your application in. I'm sure it will be reviewed and you'll be top of the list. Well, I put my application in, came up for an interview, fell in love with the place because when I first retired, we started looking, or before I retired, we were looking for places. And you know, Las Vegas, no trees.
Mm-hmm.
Boulder City, no trees. You know, and growing up in Lake Tahoe and everything, I wanted trees, or I wanted the ocean, or I wanted water. Well, we came here and had trees and water. And so, as we came back from the job interview up at Bayview, I told my wife, I said, you know, it doesn't matter whether I get the job or not. I said, I want to move here. And she said, I do too. And my son was with us. At the time, he was 15 years old. And he said he did too. But this was after staying about 3 days in the resort, which had just opened in '76.
Okay.
And all those nice young ladies out there, he fell in love with the place. He fell in love with the ladies, and he was happy. So we said, okay. We looked for housing. We found a place. We put a deposit down. We went back to Norfolk, where we were stationed, or where my home office was. I put it on the market. The job came open here. I moved out here. She stayed there and sold the house. She moved out about a month later, and we moved to a place up on Yellowstone Trail, at an 1.75 acres, and at the time, 4,200 square feet. Lived up on the hill, so we overlooked Blue Creek Bay.
Oh, nice.
Loved it, and that's the way we started. And then I started looking around because the project I was on was going to last about 3 years, and that's the same amount of time I needed to get invested. And so I told her, I said, you find something that you would like to do that we can make a living at, and that we can work together. And one day she came in with an article in the paper about llamas. She says, I want to raise llamas. So we bought our first llama. Since they're a herd animal, the guy that we bought it from let us have a gelding to keep her company. We liked him so well, we kept him. And he became one of our favorite animals, a good pack animal. And then we raised llamas for probably 15, 16 years. They became snowbirds. In between time, I did about 7 years of real estate.
A little bit of everything.
I jumped around like a jumping jack.
What's one of your favorite memories of Jerry?
Oh God. I guess the favorite memories were with Jerry. We both loved to dance. I can remember dancing under the stars at Lockwood Hall in Pearl Harbor. You know, here we are in a historical place that was World War II. It existed then, and it had a lot of history there. We did there Japan. We had a lot of fun in Japan. Just amazing the amount of things that we did together. And I guess her individually, that she was a very gracious lady, very, very attractive, always took care of her family, took care of herself, but so gracious. A little bit on the introverted side, but that's okay because she made up for it in so many ways. Never in once in 62 years did I regret marrying her. She was the love of my life. And today, she still is.
I don't know what to ask now. I do, but I'm so glad you found her. That makes me very happy. So your oldest daughter, what was her name?
What's that?
Your oldest daughter's name?
Kelly.
So where were you when you found out you were gonna be a father?
We were in San Diego. I was fairly new to the Navy because, let's see, we graduated 58, married 59. She was born in 60. We were in San Diego. I was fairly junior. She was born at the Naval Hospital there in San Diego. When she was 1 month old, the boat that I was attached to at the time had been moved to Vallejo for an overhaul. And when she was a month old, we drove from San Diego up to Vallejo and moved there into Navy housing. And we stayed there. And we were fortunate because my mom and dad lived at Lake Tahoe, so they could come down. And they came down frequently. And she was very close to me, and I was close to her. And that closeness continued clear up until about 3 years before she passed away, or even maybe a little before that, because and she got married. And of course, she had her family then. So we drifted a little bit apart, but we were always close. We could always talk. And then when she got a divorce, she and my oldest granddaughter moved in with us. And they lived with us about a year and a half. And I formed a closeness with my granddaughter that still exists today. She lives here in Post Falls.
It's nice. How old is she?
You had to ask that.
I'm just guessing she's probably about my age.
She was born in 1984.
Okay, yeah, I was born in 81, but my mom was born in 60, so that's why I was figuring we were about the same age. So then, how many years till your son was born?
My son, he was born in 1971.
Oh, so there was a big jump.
We had our second daughter.
Oh, okay. So then tell me about your second daughter.
She was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico. While I was in college, and she was born. Let's see, we moved there in October. She was born in late October, after we had just moved there from San Diego, and she currently works as a chief financial officer at a hospital in Liberty, Montana. And we have become more close over the years. There was a period where we were kind of estranged, but we've become very close. And not only that, but close with her daughters, because I just love the hell out of them. They're great and so beautiful.
Was she still a child when you moved up here, or had she moved out?
No, she was married, and she actually had a son at that time, and she got a divorce, and she moved from New Jersey up here, and she lived with us about a year.
Libby's just not far, so I wondered if she had come with you or
No,
because of you.
She came later. It was when divorce, and her husband was abusive, so we got my father-in-law lived in Norfolk. He worked with Julie, my daughter, and he helped her get a plane with the baby out here and get away from the husband. And so she came here, moved in with us, and so I got to be with my grandson and his dog. So we used to live up there on Sunnyside, and all we had was an acre and 3/4, but it had a lot of pine trees on it. And I cut down pine trees, we haul them down, had bird piles. And my grandson would be up there with me with a little tractor and trailer. And we'd come in, he would have soot all over him. And then he would get cleaned up and go up and play on the ridge right above the house, and his dog would be with him. I'd tell Jerry, I says, there's a boy and his dog.
How fun. So, and then you had your son, since I guess I thought he was the middle child, so he's the baby.
Yeah.
So you had him before you moved up here.
From 63, when Julie was born, to 71, when Pat was born. And Pat was born in New London, Connecticut.
Oh gosh, you were all over the place.
At that time, I had been an officer for a few years, and so we were comfortable. Jerry had a very easy time. I took her to the hospital, and I was taking the girls over to some people that were going to take care of her. And by the time I got back, Pat was born. And Pat and I kind of went to, we became close, but he was really close to Mom. He went to Fort Union Military Academy by his choice, not because of any problems or anything. He wanted to go to military school, and he went there, and she used to take her little Fiat Spider and drive from Norfolk up to Fort Union and pick him up and bring him home for the weekend. And so he and his mom they were really close. I can still remember today, she'd say, Pat, you want anything? He'd say, Mommy, fix me a sandwich. And today, he's grown up, super guy, and he's the fire chief here in Hayden.
I love a mama's boy. I only have one son, so I love a mama's boy.
Well, he was close to his mom, but he was also one that he would go hunting with me.
Is that him in the picture with you here?
No, that's a friend of mine.
Okay.
So, but he would go hunting with me. Back in those days, we were taking 35mm slides, and my daughter has all those slides. She's trying to get them put on the desk. I don't know where she stands with it.
That'll be neat to see when she does get it. So tell me your favorite family vacation with your kids.
We never really had a family vacation. Our vacation consisted of, I would be stationed in California. My next duty station was in New London, Connecticut. And so we would drive across country. We'd stop a few places and see things. During that time, we saw the Grand Canyon, we saw the Painted Desert, a lot of different things there and memories that way. But just saying, hey, I had a 2-week vacation, it didn't work that way. We were always on the move. 24 years, I think we had something like 25 or 26 moves. And some of them were 6 months apart, some of them were a year apart, some of them were 3 years apart, just depending. So until we got here, we never really had a vacation. And when we got here, this whole life here, the hunting, the fishing, whatever, you know, just cross-country skiing, that was our vacation. It's right here in the Coeur d'Alene area.
It is a good area. We are very blessed. So you went all over the world with Jerry.
Yes.
What's your favorite non-United States place you ever got? Japan.
We were in Yokosuka, Japan for 2 years. My daughter, oldest daughter, Kelly, was a senior in high school. And I was due to rotate out of there in January. And she was due to graduate in June. So I tried to get the Navy to let me stay there for grad. No way. So we went out. And as we flew out, all 5 of us, there wasn't a dry eye among us because we loved it. We loved the culture there. It was a clean area. It was safe. The kids used to go to the various places, you know, the samurai cabin, all the Buddha places, and they would take the train and go. And we never felt unsafe, except one time when Pat was very young and they let school out early and didn't notify us and let him off down the street from us. And at that time, initially we lived on what we call on the economy. We rented a house in a Japanese community, and then later on we moved on to the base. Well, when you move on to the base, it's almost like living in an American city. When you live on the Japanese economy, you learn that, hey, to get a water faucet fixed, you learn to use sign language.
Oh.
Because some of them speak English, some don't. And the parks there are much different than the parks here. So you learn to do things differently. But he, at that time, he was like 5 years old, and he was let off down the street. We didn't know where he was. I was at work. Jerry called me. He says, I don't know where Pat is. So I went rushing home. And pretty soon, here he comes playing with his little friends. But then the other thing, one of the most memorable things we did in Japan was we climbed Mount Fuji.
Oh, really?
All 5 of the family went up. I was overweight, smoker, didn't take any time getting in shape to go. And Patrick was 5 years old, and he would run up ahead and jump up on a rock. Come on, Dad, you can do it. And we did that all the way up to like 11,000 meters. And stayed overnight, came back down the next day. And I still remember the day climbing Mount Fuji and coming down. Coming down is more fun because you come down through kind of a shale place and you use your Fuji stick to kind of use it as a brake. I still have my Fuji stick.
Oh, wonderful.
And that was 1978. So it's an old stick. We all had one. I don't know what happened to Jerry. I had it here after we moved to this house, and I don't know what happened to it, but it's gone. But I've got mine. Patrick's, I don't know, he doesn't know what happened yet. His was not the standard size, it was kid size. And both the girls, theirs got destroyed by their ex-husbands as a matter of just, hey, discontent. But we all remember it, we all still reminisce.
That sounds like a wonderful trip.
It was. We used to travel, go places there. They would have a festival. We'd go to the next community to one of their festivals. And I happened to be fortunate enough that we were able to fly Jerry's mom over. And she came over and stayed for, I think, 2 weeks. And she got into the festivals quite a bit because she was widowed, recently divorced from second husband. And she was over there just having a ball. Between the sweet potato cart coming down the street and the sake, yeah, she had a good time.
Eat, drink, and be merry.
Oh, yeah, especially at nighttime when the festival dancing was going.
Oh,
She always seemed to find one of those Japanese guys that would take her out and dance with him. But she was a fun-loving woman.
so did she just visit, or did she stay with you guys over there for a while?
She just visited for about 2 weeks, and then she went home. She was at that time living in Palm Springs, and she just stayed for a visit. Over the years, she's visited with us a few times, and then in, I guess it was 1980 or 1981, she moved to Norfolk, and she was living with us, and there she met her husband, who she stayed with several years, and he and I became very close. She went into an assisted care place with a memory unit, and so she didn't recognize him or me. And he was, our place on Sunnyside, on Sunnyside, when I had that built, I had a unit, main house, 3-car garage, and then I had what we called a guest house. It was about, I guess it was about 1,200-1,300 square foot, 2-bedroom place. And when, at some point before she went in assisted care, my father-in-law and her moved into that place, and they lived, so they lived right across the garage from us. When Mom went into the assisted care, Robert, of course, stayed there, and he lived there, and so he would have 2 or 3 meals. Maybe every night we'd have dinner together, and became very, very close. At the time, I was healthy, drove him wherever he wanted to go, and he was financially well off, so not rich, but he was very financially stable. And so we had a good time. He was getting too old and wasn't able to get around. And he was probably at the stage that I am right now, except he didn't have the heart problem.
Do they think your heart problem came from all the years in the submarine?
No, I don't know. I was apparently exposed to Agent Orange when I was in Guam, but I can't say it was. VA is looking at it now, and I may get something out of it. I may not. If I don't, I don't have that much longer, so it's not going to make that much difference financially. But I don't know, but there is a history of heart problem in my dad's side of the family.
I was in my head when we met last week. I was thinking that the pressure might have done something to the valves in your heart, but then you add the Agent Orange and genetic. Yeah.
You don't know about that, and then of course that could be related to kidney problems, edema, it's the whole thing. So
And I know, but I don't think we recorded it. It was just your birthday a couple weeks ago. So how old are you?
Turned 39.
39.
Well, 84.
84. I know. I had said something recently about how cool you are, and that I'm so lucky. All the 80-plus-year-old veterans I get to meet, and I'm just like, you guys have such amazing stories and lives, but you're also mellow. It's not what you think of.
Being in submarines, there was an awful lot that I can't talk about, because when I retired in '84, I had a 50-year retirement plan, or 50-year restriction on operations that I could talk about.
So if you get 10 more years, I can come back and you can tell me all your secrets.
Or if you want to get an idea, there is a book called Blind Man's Bluff,
Okay.
and that covers the Cold War, submarine operations in the Cold War. And I think you'll find it fascinating.
Oh, I will definitely have to look. I'm a reader besides, so I will definitely have to look
I would
at
loan
that.
you one. I've got 2 copies, and I would loan you one, but they're both out.
You are fine. I will check it out from the library, and then I'll get an excuse to come see you again.
Yep, blind. And there's some of it I can talk about. There's some I still have mementos from.
Oh, really?
There's one article in there, or one section, where they talk about the USS Philadelphia. Well, I have a plaque from the Philadelphia, and of that plaque, I think there were 5 of them made, and I wound up with 1. So, because I had a little bit of input into where they operated.
That's very cool. I've wondered about your flag every time I come over here. So the one behind you, what is that flag?
The friend that helps take care of me.
It's what?
That helps take care of me.
Uh-huh.
That name is Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
We met, I guess, about 6 years ago. And at the time, my wife had dementia, and I was doing my man cleaning here, which, you know what a man cleaning is, surface stuff only. And then she went into assisted care for a memory unit because she got to wandering and stuff. And a mutual friend of ours had some type of a function, and he invited the 2 of us, not as a couple, as individuals. And during the evening, I made a comment. I said, I have a great place to have something like this, but I said, it's dirty, and I'm ashamed of it, so I'm not going to do it. Well, as we were leaving, she looked at me and she says, I can help you. I clean places. I said, well, come on over and look at it. She came over and looked at it and says, yeah, I can do this. And so I hired her to clean the house. She spent 3 days getting rid of the garbage and the dirt that I never touched. And she became a house cleaner. And then as time went on, we became friends because she was here every week. We became friends, and then periodically she would cook. She would do other stuff, and then it just generated into stuff that she does so many things today. She cooked last night. She cooked a meal for me. We went up to Bayview, and I can't drive, so she takes me places. When she's going to the store, she wants to know what the grocery list is. I tell her what I need, and she shops for me. So she does an awful lot of things, and fortunately she only lives about a mile away from here.
That's nice.
So she is one of the first people I call if I fall. And she's always here.
That's good.
So she's just a very, very good friend.
That's really good to have. So I have like two more questions because I know I've taken up a lot of your time. What, if you were giving advice to your grandchildren about how to be happy, because you've lived a very good, happy life, what would you tell them to do to replicate that?
Well, first off, I would tell them, if you're going to be working, find something you like that you get paid for. You know, if you love what you're doing and you still get compensated for it, that's great. If you have a partnership or a marriage, look at it as each one gives 60% and only expects 40%. That way you're not disappointed by not getting quite what you want, but you're always willing to go that extra mile. And that would make a tremendous difference. All my kids, all my grandkids, I think, have wound up getting divorced. I have a great-granddaughter who just got married last summer, and I think that you're going to make it. But, you know, I feel like that if they used the 60-40 rule, that they would probably still be together, although two of them were in an abusive relationship. And it was one of those situations where they needed to get out. No matter how much they were giving, they needed to get out. And I was glad to see them get out. So that's my rules.
I think that's a good rule. Okay, so my last question. Is there anything you wish you had done that you didn't?
That's a hard question. Honestly, I can't think of anything. If I had to do it over again, I don't think I'd make many changes. We had a happy marriage. We had a good family. Even today, I'm still friends with my kids. I'm good friends with my grandkids. And I even have a good relationship, good friendship with my great-grandkids. Now, my great-great-granddaughter, she's the oldest great-great. And, well, now she's a great-granddaughter. Her kids will be my great-great. So, my great-grandkids, I have a good relationship with them. I look forward to see them, visit them. But you know, at 84, you get to spoil them and then send them home.
That's my favorite answer. I love when people don't have regrets. That's a life lived well.
For me, it was. I look back on it and I regret that I don't have to do it again. Even the hard times were good.
I appreciate you letting me quiz you about all of your things. I just enjoy you.